Test.
Oh, okay.
One more time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. One more time. Welcome to Court Reporter Confidential.
A place to talk about all things court reporting, including industry news, technology, best practices, and personal experiences from professionals in the field. Today, we're talking leadership, advocacy, the future of court reporting, and what it means to guide the profession during a rapidly changing time. My guest today is Cindy Isaacsen, current NCRA president. Thank you for coming on the pod with us.
Thank you for letting me be here. I'm so excited to share my afternoon with you guys.
I know you're busy, and you fit us in, and I really appreciate it. Let's start with just a little bit of background about you, like your journey into court reporting. How did you first discover court reporting? Everyone loves these stories of how we stumble upon it.
Well, it really is a great story, I think, of I wanted to be a physical therapist, and I had my whole journey figured out. And one night at supper, my dad very quietly said, "You would be a terrible physical therapist. You need to find something else to do." And I was like heartbroken. I'm like, what? I have my books and everything. I knew where I was going and what I was going to do. And so I literally spent my whole summer thinking, what am I going to do now? Now what? And they had a career day at my high school where you just went from classroom to classroom. You had to pick like so many things. And I went to a class, and there was the court reporter with the old machine with the purple ink and the paper, and I was in love. And that was, I went and talked with my counselor, and we found a school in Abilene, Texas. I'm from Texas originally, and I found the school, and that was it. At 17, I graduated from high school, and I went straight to court reporting school.
Amazing. I love that. It's funny. My dad actually tried to talk me out of becoming a court reporter. So yours was more intuitive, but now he's glad I did what I did. So did you originally, well, you became a court reporter. Did you always see yourself in a leadership role, or was that much later?
Yeah, that was, I truly think that was, I don't know that anybody ever says, I don't know that very many people say, hey, yeah, I think I want to be a leader. I think that that's a transitional thing that, you just grow into it.
Yeah.
And you see yourself, with growth and with maturity, your ability to be able to do that. And even when I, got on the board, at the very beginning, that was one of the questions they asked is, do you see yourself moving up? And I said, let me get through these, first 3 years as a director, and we'll talk.
Mm-hmm.
I think because you have to, I think you feel like that you want to, because you don't want to do a disservice. You want to make sure that that you're capable, and it's a terrifying role because it's a lot of responsibility and a lot of weight. But yeah, I mean, because I think you start off, really, as a state leader, that's where you, kind of start off, and that was a rocky start for me. I started, because I've kind of been all over, and I'll tell you a little bit about my journey as a court reporter, just briefly, so you kind of have a better understanding of where I come from,
Yeah, please.
where I've been. So I got out of school in 3 years. Was married previously, and he was in the military, so we got married in March of 1988, and I got out of school in November. Well, he was already at his first duty station in Kentucky, which was right on the border of Tennessee. So I moved straight to Clarksville, Tennessee, and I started working there. Worked a year in Clarksville, and we got orders for Germany. Well, I just bought my CAT system, the printer, the CAT system, the whole 9 yards, the $10,000 worth of equipment. And after a year, I'm like, we're moving to Germany. I can't keep my payments up on this thing. And so I kept my machine, and I sold my equipment to the firm I was working for, moved to Germany thinking I wouldn't be able to work there. And I got there, and I met a girl who was a scopist for a court reporter who lived there. And she's like, oh my gosh. She said, I work for a firm out of Frankfurt. So I was like 22 years old, and she took me to Frankfurt. We met this lovely couple that had this firm, and I started working for them and went all over Europe at 22 years old. She taught me how to read the train schedule, and, wherever I needed to go, how to get my ticket, how to get on the train, how to figure out when to get off the train, and to get where I needed to be. Of course, we're talking 1990-ish.
Wow.
And So I got that all figured out and went all over and took depots in, Italy and France and Holland and all over Germany. And it was, when I think back on it, I think, was that like another life of mine?
Yeah.
It was pretty incable. And
I bet you're a wizard with all the accents because you just had to pivot and understand
well,
them
you
all.
just, and you had a lot of English, but then you had people who said, "Oh, my English is very good," but when it really was not optimal.
Mm.
But it was pretty incredible stuff. But all I had was a word processing system and a paper box, your note box. And I had to hand type everything I took,
Ooh, because you
from
had sold your cat
from my
software
notes.
back.
Well, because you're on a different electric power outlet. And so I don't think that it would have even worked, that
Okay.
using their power stuff. So I went from Germany, then I went to Louisiana, and I had a son by then, and we were living outside of Fort Polk. And then my husband at the time came home and said, "I'm getting out of the Army. You need to find a good job." I'm like, I thought being a mom was a pretty good job. And I was
Mm.
working a little bit, part-time, just doing a depot here or there. And I called the courthouse there where we were living, and I said, "Hey, I'm a court reporter. Do you guys need any help?" And they're like, "No." Click. And then I called
Interesting.
Beauregard Parish, and I said, "Hey, I'm a court reporter. I was just calling to see if you guys needed any help." And the lady goes, "Who told you about this?" I'm like, "No one. I don't even know what you're talking about." And she said, "Our court reporter is leaving and we have to have a court reporter like now." And the girl that was leaving was a pen writer, and I was, of course, a steno writer. And, but they would not take my Texas certification. I took my test and I passed all three legs at the same time. And so they gave me a test by myself, and I drove to Baton Rouge, and they gave me a special I just sat for one. They got permission, and I passed that test, all three legs, and started working. And the judge was just beside himself because, he had a pen writer and now he has a steno writer.
You were high tech.
I
Yeah.
was high tech. And so then after, 7 or 8 years of being there with him, my husband at the time got a job at Fort Leavenworth in Kansas. So we moved to Kansas. And
Mm.
so in 2005, I got involved with the Kansas Court Reporters Association. I was nominated for treasurer. And during that time, we went through a divorce. And about 6 months into being treasurer, it was just more than I could deal with,
Mm.
trying to be a mom and trying to, they just literally gave me a lesson in the back of a Buick. They're like, "Okay, here's what you need to do. Pay this person, and I just said, I can't I was doing freelance work and taking care of two boys, and
Yeah.
I got left with the home and two dogs and two kids. So anyway, so I gave them all back. I'm like, I can't do this. And so I thought, they're never going to want me back they'll never let me lead again. So I got remarried, and fast forward into like 2013, 2014, I started here at the courthouse where I'm at now. And our managing reporter said, "Hey, Cindy, our KCRA, they need a secretary, treasurer, they need a secretary. And now's your time. I really think you'd be great." I'm like, "I don't know that they want me." She said, "No, they want you." And so that's when I started again. So secretary for like 6 months. And right as soon as I became secretary, they sent me to boot camp. And boot camp is
There you
just so
go.
pivotal, for your leadership track. It's incredibly life-changing and empowering. And so I went to boot camp and I became vice president. Like within 6 months after that, went to boot camp a second time, and then I was president 2 years in a row with KCRA, then immediate past president. And then in 2018, I went on the national board. So I've been on
Yes.
the board since then.
Well, let me back up just in case our listeners are not familiar with boot camp. That is something put on by NCRA,
Correct.
and it's part leadership training and a lot of legislative training, which
Yes.
ties very much into state leadership, right? And how
Yeah.
you can effectuate change within your state and just how the legislative process works, because it's very foreign. We're court reporters. We're
Right.
not in the political arena. So, yes, I attended once. I don't know if you were on that panel where I was given a question and I just fell apart, but it was perfect practice because it was 2 weeks, I believe, right before I was going to be testifying at our Senate Judiciary Committee for California. So I'd rather fall apart in front of all of you and then hold it together during the real deal. So, but
Right.
yeah, it was incredibly helpful. Yeah, it's a
Well, it's
great
nothing
tool.
better than more empowering than being able to advocate for yourself. And that's what it does. It helps you not just in a political arena. It helps you on in every situation in your life, whether it's in your work and in your home life, in your personal life. It just empowers you on so many levels and gives you the confidence to be able to just step up and say, you're standing in front of people,
Yeah,
and luckily for you, when you fall apart, you're amongst friends, and I'm not gonna die, and this doesn't matter. So,
right.
you
I
know,
lived through it. I lived to tell the tale. Yeah.
right.
Oh
I
man.
feel like
And
if
what?
it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And then you think, well, can't get much worse, and nope,
Right,
it's not
right,
gonna be the last time I fall apart, I'm sure.
right.
So, what has it meant to you to serve on the NCRA board and now as president? I mean, what has that experience been like in a nutshell?
That would be a pretty big nutshell. You just have, I mean, I learned a lot about association work, and, about states, about your state association, and that's such a small, so different than on a national level. And you learn about different, committees, and because, you start off just kind of like in baby steps, and you learn more about people and understanding, who they are and where they come from and their leadership style, and, how they take in information and how they respond to you. And it has really been, this last year it has truly been phenomenal. I just wrote down a list of things that I asked Laura. I said, what initiatives have we accomplished this year? Because it has truly been a productive, busy year. So many great things. We did the peer-to-peer support, which is a fantastic, because as court reporters, we kind of by ourselves oftentimes. We
Yeah.
hear a lot of really awful things and we don't know what to do with it. And so we started the peer-to-peer support group, and it's, every other month, and you just, get together with we have a trained trauma support person, Bev
Oh,
Perez, and she's fantastic. If you've not been a part of any of these support meetings, give it a try. It has been fantastic. She's wonderful. And,
and is this for NCRA members?
it's
May I ask?
NCRA members, and it's
Okay.
free. And you just, you can sign up online. It's through the foundation, and you can say as much or as little as you want to say. But I just, during COVID, we just came back from COVID, and we had so many cases, and they were all those level one, really awful cases. And there came a point where I was really kind of falling apart because I was seeing so much and hearing so much. And, my husband's a principal at a middle school, which is, middle schoolers are something. And my neighbor's a nurse. And so we would sit outside and kind of commiserate together. And, I would tell him, like what my day was, when we would have awful cases. And we got back home one night, and he said, Cindy, you just can't say about your day just to anybody, because you don't know their background. They may have been a victim of some kind of sexual assault or and when you bring things like that and you talk so casually about it, you don't know what kind of scar you may be reopening,
Mm.
some kind of wound that you're reopening. He said, so you need to be really careful, who you talk to about your day. And I was like, and it dawned on me, I'm like, wow, that's impactful. And I had never really thought about it. But I'm like, well, who do we go to? And I'm like, and I can't be alone in all the things that we hear and all the things that we see. And so that I made it my mission to really find some kind of support system for us, because DAs have it, police officers have it. I'm like, why don't we have some kind of support group for us? So that's been something that we've implemented. We have the the new Steno Speaks. We did that through the Real Task Force. We have reporters that have been reporting for over 50 years, and I started doing the legacy achievement letters that we passed out, and the response that I've received from that, the pictures and the letters have been, I mean, it has made my heart just swell with pride. We send, right after boot camp year before last, one of the workers at the Capitol from Kansas, he was working in one of the Kansas offices. Got caught in a crossfire and was killed. And I said, I want a letter sent to because all those guys and girls at the Hill, all those interns, they're very much involved in each other's lives.
Mm.
And I said, I want a letter sent to all of the Kansas people because they're all friends. And then something else happened with the Virginia, with the West Virginia, the couple of the National Guardsmen were killed. And I said, let's send a letter. I said, I don't want us to go to Capitol Hill and say, hey, we're the National Court Reporters Association, support our bill, once a year. I said, I want them to hear from us all the time because we do care about them. Let's have that open communication and those relationships with them so that I want us to always be, I want us to be heard. I want our name to be up there. So good, hey, congratulations, you're retiring. Way to go. You've had a great career. Send a letter, always have our name out there.
Mm.
So we've
So
been
smart.
doing that a lot, working with the government relations. We do the thank you notes, the digital thank you notes for all of our, speakers last year. We did it for like people who paid extra on top of their dues. We have a group of people who say, hey, you know what? This association's important to me, and I'm gonna give more. And so we sent digital thank you notes for them because they don't have to do that. And I think it's important to thank our people for doing more. So
That's
doing
huge.
things like that. So just a lot of really great things that we've been working on. We've got, people who are testing for their RPR. They have the ability to take 2 tests and transcribe them both and see which one that they pass so that kind of gets that jitters out of the way. They have unlimited time to warm up. They can sit there and warm up as long as they want to. They have more, their word list is longer. So, we've been working on, because we want people to be successful on these tests. So we've been working with the education department to try to, what can we do? So there's a lot of things that we've been working on this year. And
Yeah, it's hard to fit all that into a year. I'm impressed. You've done a lot.
It's been fantastic. Just the
Yeah.
relationship building that we've been working on has been awesome.
What has surprised you most about your presidency or about that role? Was there anything that just surprised you and weren't expecting?
I don't think that you know what to expect. I kind of felt like I may just be a glorified firefighter, just putting out fires. But I have loved getting to know people and getting to visit and spend that time with my colleagues. It has been fantastic. And, I met a man in Alabama, and he was really upset with me that I did not return his email. And I was like, sir, I never got your email. And come to find out, he did .org, not .org. And, but he had family from where I'm from. And he wrote me a long letter and told me all about where his family was. And so I sent the letter to my sister, who still lives in my hometown. I'm the only outlier. I'm the only one who moved from the state. And so my sister went, I said, and she's a wonderful photographer. She does, wonderful work. And I sent her the letter. I said, would you see if you can find any of these places that he has articulated in this letter? And would you take pictures? So she took pictures. She found the cemetery. She found the headstones. She found all of these things. She found so she took all kinds of pictures and I sent them all to him. And he was just beside himself. He's been one of those people who's been a reporter for over 50, almost 60 years.
Wow.
And so just building their relationships with people has been so fun, and listening to the things that they've heard, because we as a profession hear so many things, and this older generation that have been reporting for that long, they have heard some things. And another man I met have talked to from Utah, same thing. He just called me. He was he's a baseball player before he became a court reporter. He said, I couldn't play baseball anymore, so I became a court reporter. I'm like, well, who would have thunk it, that you could, And he said, I had arms that were just huge, he said, I'm just this big guy, writing on that machine.
That's awesome. That's so fun.
Yeah, it has truly been more fun than I ever thought. But yes, every day, you never know, tons of emails, tons of responsibility of, going through and, just communicating back and forth with headquarters. But we got great staff. I've got a great board. We work really hard. I mean, I think that's the thing that I don't think that people understand when they say,
imagine.
when they talk about, NCRA is not doing this or not doing that. I'm like, then I really encourage you to run for a board position, because it is not near as easy as you might think that it is. And
that is my absolute favorite thing to do whenever anyone complains. I'm like, oh, are you volunteering?
Right. What I hear is volunteerism.
Be my guest. Yes. Please step right up. And then they go, oh, well, not me. I'm like, oh,
no. Yeah.
Okay. Listen, you cannot complain from the bleachers and then not want to get on that field. I'm
Exactly.
sorry.
Right. Then pay more money. Pay the extra.
Do something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, pivoting a little bit to just our profession as a whole, obviously there's a lot of potential change. There's been a lot of stuff going on. So, as far as the state of our profession, how would you describe that? How would you describe how it currently is, the current state of our profession of court reporting?
When I started back in 85, when I went to school in 85, my grandmother told me, you're not going to have a job in 5 years. And I think that the people that came before us were told the same thing.
Mm,
And I think that people will continue to say, you're not going to have a job. And you're only as good as you continue to strive to make yourself good. We can all sit back and, if you don't practice and if you don't perfect your skill, there is going to be always going to be a need. The more time that you sit and spend about how things are going to take our place, you're going to be replaced because you're
mm,
going to be sitting and spinning about what could happen, as opposed to taking that time to be using your real time, you know, doing the things that you need to be doing in court to provide that real time, to provide, make yourself be a team player. Hey, when they want something, they want a depot, you know, get your tail end in the car and go take a depot. Don't say, oh, I'm not going to go in and take a depot. I only do this, that, or the other. I think that
preach.
we're our worst enemies sometimes when we say, I'm only going to do X, Y, Z. We don't have the luxury of saying that anymore.
Yeah.
And we have to be available. We have to be flexible and put a smile on your face and get in there and take the work.
Yeah. And you never know. You may think it's a bad job or a bad opportunity. And sometimes
Yeah,
those end up being great
right.
opportunities.
Because guess what? You may meet somebody there who says, hey, can I hire you? I've got a great job that's going to come up. There's going to be a lot of attorneys. It's going to be great.
Yep.
And it's all about making those relationships and building those relationships going forward, because
That's right.
this job that you're going to be working on may not be optimal. It may have only been 100 pages with, 3 attorneys, but the next one may be really great.
Yeah.
So don't pigeonhole yourself into, I only do this, I only do X, Y, and Z, when really you still got the rest of the alphabet that you could be
Mm,
doing. So,
that's right.
I really do think that, and when we were at boot camp this last year, back in March, I went with our lobbyist, Will, and we had some special appointments that we had. And we were at one of, and they were some specialists there they were talking with them about tuberculosis. And I was quite intrigued by this whole conversation. But they had these expert doctors that were there from Somalia.
Whoa.
And I punched him in the shoulder. I said, Will, I want you to listen to these people talk to them. That trying to understand what they were saying was impossible. I said, now, when you go to talk to, our congressman and our representative, when I'm not there to advocate and to give examples, I said, I want you to listen right now. And I want you to try to listen to every word that they're saying and try to figure it out. And imagine AI picking this out. I said, this is
No
hard
way.
stuff. I said, because they will testify somewhere, somehow. They're going to call them to testify in a case. I said, just imagine what that will look like, whether it's in a depot or in a court. I said,
Yeah.
they'll be there. I said, so this is your example to use. And he just sat there. His head was just shaking. He said, I don't even understand one word. And this poor little staffer was sitting there trying to take notes, and you could see him just going, he's like, It
But
was,
he has the luxury of being able to just smile and nod and get the
uh-huh,
gist, right?
uh-huh.
Where
Yeah,
we do
right.
not.
That's not that easy for the rest of us. So
Man.
yeah, so
Well,
it was good for him to have to listen to that and understand maybe a little bit of trying to process the words and get that down. So I just encourage everyone to, make yourself the best that you can be, because there's always going to be work out there. It's what you choose to do with it.
that's right. So you're not concerned we're going to be replaced
No,
by AI?
no,
Yeah.
not 1 minute, not 1 minute of any day.
Yep.
And what I'm concerned about is people not wanting to do the work, not willing to improve themselves, that
Mm.
we become just stagnant and we just sit back because for so long you could just sit back and say, I'm a court reporter,
And you had a
you know?
guaranteed job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you may have to work a little harder to keep your job. So you need to, get in there early, get that work done,
Yeah.
provide them what they want because they want it. They're seeing what's out there. They're seeing the best of the best, the creme de la creme. Be that cream. Be the cream of the crop.
Because if we're offering a subpar product, AI could do that, right?
Betcha.
Yep. Yep.
You're only going to replace you if the replacement's better than you.
That's right.
So
That should be our tagline for associations. Oh man. So what should reporters understand about the difference between technology assisting us versus replacing us? What's your perspective on
yeah,
that?
I love to use technology. We've been using technology, you know, for forever. I mean, technology is our friend. I love when I get a new machine. I love when we get new tools to help us be better. And you have to keep up with that so that you can be better, so that you learn along with technology. We can't be afraid of technology. I love to use it to find out what are they talking about? I'm not the smartest person in the world, but by golly, that transcript's going to make it look like I am. I'm going to use the technology that I have so that I can, get that information. You know, don't sit there. We don't have, we're not having to go through, the day where we had phone books for every county stacked up against the wall,
Yeah.
every medical book, and every pharmaceutical book that we had. We don't have to do that anymore. We have technology to help us. So utilize it. When you tell kids these days that you had a phone book, they look at you cross-eyed. What do you mean
Yeah.
a phone book? You know? What do you mean a party line? What are you
Now
talking
all we
about?
have to do is start to type in a word and Google's like, "Did you mean this?" I'm like,
Right,
"Yes, I did. Thank you very
right.
much."
Or, no, that's not what I meant. Keep trying. So
Correct.
don't assume that it knows, so
That's
double check your resources. Don't ever assume that it knows it because AI does the same thing. It's going to assume some things. So don't assume that it just because chat puts it up there that that's the end all be all. Still do your homework, but use the technology that you have at your disposal.
right.
These are all the things that we have. Be a smart user of technology.
Yeah.
But that's why you have it. We have computers, thank God. Because, I'm telling you, the girl that was using her paper notes and having to type that stuff, at 22 years old,
You don't want to go back to that.
I do not want to go back to that, nor do I want to look back at the transcripts that I produced back then either.
Man, you made one mistake and you had to redo the whole page. Ugh.
Exactly. Are you kidding me? Every page, you're like, ugh.
Yeah. That'll make you a better reporter, though, a better
It sure
typist.
did. You sure did.
Yep. So, speaking on behalf of NCRA, since you can still do that,
Yeah.
how is NCRA approaching these conversations about technology and AI? And what's been the general message or conclusions that you all have come to and what you're promoting?
Well, we did our statement, our a position statement on AI.
Yep.
I know right now we're working on, COPE is working on a position. I mean, like what is appropriate, what you should and should not be doing. And some things are just common sense. I don't think that we all should have to have, you know, something telling you what you should or should not be doing.
But
But,
sometimes we need to lay
but
it all out.
sometimes we
Yeah.
have to, I know we have to have it written out. But COPE is working on things, but it moves so fast. Technology moves so fast that by the time we get this, accomplished, by the time we have a meeting, because it does, you have committees. We have 26 committees and, we have those many volunteers. We have so many wonderful volunteers who spend their own time and, God love them. I just love our committees and their volunteers because they take this all very serious. And I appreciate that so much. But when you get them all together and they're very smart people, and we have an attorney who works with them to come up with like what is appropriate, what they should and shouldn't be doing. By the time we get that out, there's something else that's brewing in the background. Something else that's because it is going so fast that someone back there and is making up something else. And you're like, "Oh, I thought we had just,
Right.
I thought we had come to the end of this. I thought we were ahead of the game, but then we're not because it does move very fast." So
And
we're
I should define COPE. Can you define it for us?
Council on Professional Ethics, I believe is what that is.
So it's the standards that we as
The
members should.
standards. Yeah, it's our
Okay.
ethics and what we
Yeah.
should abide by and things that we should and should not do. What would you do in this situation? What does NCRA? And so when an attorney wants you to, hey, or a judge says, you know what, I read that transcript and I really think you need to change my ruling to this word. And you're like, no, I'm not in the business of changing words. So we have a COPE opinion about this. So we have opinions that are in there that say this is what you should or should not do. If you're doing a video tape deposition and there's something that it said that makes the recording, but the court reporter didn't hear it, what do you do? The attorneys come back and go, we hear it on the video, but it's not on the transcript. What should you do? So there are opinions that are in the COPE opinion, and there's several opinions. You can find them on the NCRA website for
That's a
a
big
long
benefit
list.
for
Sure.
NCRA's members. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and so you can't just say, if the attorneys ask you about it, don't have to just say, because I said so. You can go back and say, I have authority backing me up. It's our national ethics, professional ethics guidelines, and
Yeah.
this is what we lean on.
Yeah,
So,
that's huge.
yeah.
Now, speaking of resources, so obviously NCRA is big supporter of students, and you guys have amazing programs like A to Z and things like that. What would be your message for students? What do you say to students who are struggling in school right now? Because we have a lot of student viewership
Yeah.
and listenership.
Every time I go to a conference, I always try to pull the students out and I'm like, okay, which conference, like which session would the students would it be like too over their head or they would be, it would be confusing. They would not enjoy. I want to pull them out and just spend about an hour and a half with them, just some one-on-one time with them. And because apparently anxiety it's apparently very contagious, like the chicken pox. And I'm not minimizing anxiety at all. Don't ever mistake my words that way because I know that truly is that we struggle with that. And I think that I told someone the other day, I said, we need to take ready, begin out of our vocabulary at the beginning of tests. Let's change it to, you got this, let's change it to something
Yes.
positive because that ready, begin sends people into a whole nother dimension.
Yeah, your heart starts beating, your
Right.
stomach drops, all of it. Yes.
You vomit on your machine. It's just a crazy thing. I said, but honestly, I really do think I'm like, if we could change those two beginning words, like, and now we're going to, you got this. Let's start now, or something, so that we don't have that,
Right.
that feeling. But I said, let's change those words from test anxiety, because even the word anxiety makes your whole face kind of scrunch up in your shoulders. Let's change that. I said, when you go look in the mirror and say, I have test anxiety, I said, change it to, I have test excitement. When you say the word excitement, because every day that I get behind that machine, it's a test. It's a test of your skills. It's a test that you get behind the car, you get behind the wheel of a car. It's a test of your skill to drive.
Mm.
No matter what we do in life, it's a test of your abilities. So let's not make it so harsh. Let's make it where it's something that you do every day. Take a test every day. Transcribe a 5-minute take every day. Let's make this the norm. Let's take it out of it being a special thing that we're like going, oh, let's make it something that we do every day.
Yeah, it's a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday. It's just another Tuesday. Let's do it again. Hey, let's take a test. And look in the mirror and say, say, I have test anxiety. And you see how your whole face, and you go, I have test excitement. Let's get excited about taking tests. Let's get excited about our future, because guess what? It moves the needle. It moves you to a new place. It moves you to a new speed. It moves you out from here to there. And
it is all mental. It is
it's
schooling and
such,
all of it's mental.
yeah.
Yeah.
And if you've got someone in your world, and we have so many people who are, it's remote, we're in this remote world, I'm like, I have I have emailed students that every time I send them an email. I'm like, I am your cheerleader. Here's my email. Here's my phone number. I don't care if I've met you or not met you. You just have my, whether you were there, you were registered and I didn't meet you. Here's my phone. I've been mentoring a girl from Ohio. She was there. I didn't meet her because she was there. I was at somewhere else and we just didn't meet, but I sent her an email and I've been mentoring her for a year and a half now. And just that time. And I want them to I'm like, you need to have positive influences in your life. When I was in court reporting school, I had a dear, dear friend. And when I was at the end of my time, I'm like, I got to get from 180 to 225. I'm like, I got to get out. I'm married and I got to get out of school. But every time I would pass a test, she would be mad at me for days. She wouldn't talk to me. She'd be mad at me. Because back then, there was a lot of court reporters. And so it was competition. And so I'm like, I need to find my people who support me and who encourage me and who are happy for me.
Yeah.
I said, so if you've got people in your life or in your circle who are not supportive and who are not your cheerleaders, who are not, literally pushing you and being real with you and being happy with you along the way. And being your cheerleader doesn't always mean, it's okay, sweetie, it's okay, it's okay. If you need to change the way you're practicing, then change the way you're practicing. Don't just keep doing the same thing if it's not working for you.
Yeah.
If you need someone to say, sweetie, practicing at Starbucks while you're drinking your cup of coffee and flirting with the boy over there, and that's not working for you. That's not practice. That's flirting. Okay. So don't go to Starbucks. Go to the library, find a little cubicle, put those headphones on and practice.
Yep.
So you need a friend who's going to be doing that for you. Let's get together. Let's practice, hardcore practice. That doesn't mean, okay, we're going to, have drinks and drink, eat popcorn and watch, the Devil Wears Prada.
Yeah.
It means let's practice and then we'll celebrate our successes. You need to find that person who's going to hold you accountable, who's going to cheer you on, but you can still be friends with your other people, but not about court reporting, not about testing,
Because
So
you
find
said the
your
negativity
people.
can be contagious, but the positivity is absolutely contagious as well.
Yes.
And find someone that
Find
will
those
push you.
people.
Yeah.
Find those people.
Yep. What qualities would you say, I know we're getting a little short on time, so what qualities would you say make someone successful in court reporting today? I know everybody wants to know.
I think the qualities is stick-to-itiveness. You just have to get your head in the game and don't let that, well, I'll just do something different. Don't let the quit in you take over. The focus and put your head down and just keep on keeping on. Just like anything else, if you want it bad enough, it will be yours. And
that
just reach out
determination.
you just got to reach out to the, and everybody. I said, you got more cheerleaders in this profession than any other profession that I know of.
It's true. We are a small community, and I've never seen, at least at our state conventions, and we celebrate the students, the brand new reporters. It's really, really, really cool. Excuse me.
And I love it so much. I love that we're at a place not in the 80s where it was such a competition. We're at a place now where people really want you to win. They want you to be successful, and they will, you have mentors, you have people who are literally they're throwing money at you to go to convention. They're throwing money at you to help you get a machine, to help you get a laptop. Whatever you need, they're doing it for you. And that is way different than what it was, 35 years ago. And it's fantastic, incredible. We've got an incredible profession, and
But getting plugged into it is huge. I tell people all the time.
Do it.
Yeah, I was not plugged in even on a state level for years. I just was working, and I just jumped right into the working world, and I loved it. It was great, but I didn't really take advantage of all the benefits of the community and for years and years and years.
I didn't either. I didn't.
Yeah.
But your life changes when you do. I mean, the networking and the relationships, and when my son had cancer, a couple of years ago, people they don't know my son from a stranger on the street, but they knew me and they contributed to him because he didn't have anything. He had just started a job. He had just had insurance literally for 21 days before he was diagnosed. And that people gave money, and thank God they did, because he didn't have anything, and it was a gift.
I'm so glad that you
Yeah.
had that.
And he's healthy, and it's gone, and it's fantastic. So, but that's what this community is. It is a community, and it is truly strength in numbers. And if I do nothing else before we end here, be involved in your state, in your national association, because we cannot do this alone. We're like a rope. A rope is made up of tiny fibers all built together, and ropes are impossible to pull apart. And if we all are in there together, we are a strong rope. And I just encourage you to be a part of our rope.
Well, I think those are perfect words to end on. I was going to say more, but I think that's the perfect way to end. I really appreciate your time today and your wisdom and your service. You've served so long, and this is probably a really intense year. I don't know how you're still smiling and don't have bags under your eyes, and you're just using your lunch hour for us. So I really appreciate it.
Well, I love it. I couldn't think of anything else I'd rather do.
Well, thank you so much for being on our podcast. And for all of our listeners, if you liked this, please like and subscribe, and look for our next episode, Court Reporter Confidential. Thank you all so much.
Thank you all.
Bye.